I'm Idiotech, and this is my review of Space Hulk Deathwing for PC. The game retails for $40 US and is brought to you by about 5 different studios. But what is the game? Well, it is a horde mode shooter. If you've played Left 4 Dead, if you've played Vermintide or any game along those lines, you know what to expect here. You kill waves and waves and waves of Tyranids in this case, and you play the role of a Space Marine in Terminator armor. You run around, you kill stuff with heavy flamers, with bolters, with autocannons, and you rinse and repeat. The fun comes in with the theme, primarily when it comes to these games. Left 4 Dead rode on its theme of being a zombie horde game. Vermintide, same deal, Warhammer franchise. And I was hoping for the same here. What I was fundamentally hoping for was Vermintide with a 40k skin. And that's kind of what we got. The problem is, it has a laundry list of issues, and I'm going to get into those now. But before we do, let's talk about the positive things, because it's always good to start off on a positive note. They've nailed the art direction here. This is probably the best realization of a Space Hulk, which is this big ship, for those of you who don't know, in the 40k universe. And they've nailed the gothic architecture, they've nailed the theme, there's purity seals everywhere. It's really great. The servo skulls are just wandering around. They've really nailed that 40k theme, that 40k atmosphere. The Terminator armor looks great. The weapons, for the most part, look and feel great when you fire them. They've done a great job here. The art team should be commended for their work. They really nailed the atmosphere of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Overall, very impressed on that level. And, if you're a fan of Warhammer 40,000, killing Xenos in Terminator armor with a heavy flamer doesn't get old fast. But if you're not a 40k fan, then this game really doesn't do much that any other horde mode shooter hasn't done before it. So let's get into some of the problems, shall we? First up, performance. Now, I'm running a GTX 980 and an i7 5820K overclocked to 4.4 GHz, and I have 16 GB of DDR4 RAM. When I run this game maxed out, I get around 60 FPS just walking around the environments. As soon as the hordes start to come in, and we're in combat though, it will drop below 30 on regular intervals. If I lower the settings to low, the game looks like garbage, but I am able to get some decent frame rates unless I'm in battle. Again, it drops down to around 45. Now, this is a problem, because when you're in a chaotic environment, there's lots and lots of waves of enemies coming at you, you kind of want to focus on fighting the enemies and not so much your frame rate. If you're running a mid-tier system, you're going to really struggle to get this game to run even on low. I have a friend running a 290, and he's barely getting 20 FPS during certain battle moments and scenes and stuff like that. So, yeah, unless you've got like a 1080 or a 1070, I wouldn't even bother when it comes to performance. It's terrible. Next up, we have crashes. The game crashes a lot, and I mean a lot. It crashes so much, in fact, that it locked up my PC twice and I had to hard reset. That's a concern. It's also a concern when it comes to disconnections in the co-op gameplay. If someone crashes and that person is the host, because this game uses a peer-to-peer system, say goodbye to 40 minutes of gameplay. That's very frustrating. The user interface is rushed. It's very clearly rushed. The font they've chosen to use for this game is a free font you can download from dafonts.com. It's a generic sci-fi font. I've seen it 100 times before. It doesn't scream quality when I see that kind of a font being used. Most studios will tend to make their own fonts or make something appropriate to the theme, i.e. 40k. Instead, they've just grabbed some free font off the internet and slapped together a UI, and you very much feel it. This entire game feels like it's held together with sticky tape. And that's a result of the game being pushed out early. It's clear to anyone who's played this game is not finished. What else do we have? Okay, we have mission design. So the mission designs are pretty basic. In the single player or the co-op mode, you go from point A to point B and you click a button. Or you go from point A to point B and you destroy an object. Or you go from point A to point B and you kill a certain enemy type. That's really all there is. So mission design is kind of dull because you'll end up walking from one side of the Space Hulk to the other. And that can take an extremely long time because if you don't know, Terminator armor is very heavy and lumbering, so it takes you a long time to walk anywhere and you have a limited sprint ability. Map design is another problem in this game. When you're in narrow corridors, and there are a lot of narrow corridors in the ship, you're going to find, especially in co-op when you're playing with your friends, that one of your friends is going to be at the front, and the other friends are going to be at the back, and the guy at the front's going to be doing most of the combat, which is kind of boring for everyone else on the team. So unless you're in open environments, you'll find a lot of the times that it's just one guy at the front doing all the fun stuff and you're standing in the back waiting to move forward. That's not very fun either. There's also some hacking elements tied into the map design, where you'll have to hack turrets and turn them off, or turn them against the Xenos. It feels pretty basic and rushed and not particularly well implemented. The map itself, when it comes to UI design, when you try and zoom into a specific area, for whatever reason, it's not calculating where the mouse is when you zoom in with the scroll wheel, so you end up on the left-hand side of the screen when you were trying to zoom into the center. It's just buggy and unrefined and unpolished. So let's talk about co-op versus single player. So the single player is a story-driven experience with cutscenes and voice acting. You go through 9 chapters, and you'll be given the objectives I've just explained. It's nice enough, and, the voice acting holds up in some areas and doesn't hold up in others. The story's nice enough, it gives you a reason to keep moving forward, and as I said, the atmosphere and art direction and all of that stuff works really well. You have 2 AI teammates, and they'll follow you around. They do a decent job at protecting your back, healing you, etc. You can equip them with certain items, and as you progress through the story, you'll earn XP, and you get to level up and spec into different talents and things like that. All of those systems are fine. They're bog standard, they don't do anything new or innovative in any way whatsoever, but they're functional, they work, and I don't really have many complaints about them. And as an overall package, I think the single player experience is probably the best thing on offer here. When it comes to co-op gameplay, however, you don't get to play the entire story through with your friends, you just get to play one map from the story with your friends, and the enemies you'll face aren't the same enemies you would face in the single-player campaign either. They just seem to throw all of the enemy types at you. So you might not be facing a super high-end broodlord coming after you and trying to kill your squad in single-player, but you will face that in co-op. It's not very fun because you don't have any of that sense of progression. You don't get to upgrade your weapons. You don't get to go through the story with your friends. You just get to play one of the maps from the single-player campaign. The problem is, most of the weapons in the single player are not actually contained within the co-op, so if I want to play the co-op with a heavy flamer, I can't do that. So that kind of takes away from the co-op experience as well. When you take into consideration the constant disconnects and crashes and bugs that you're going to experience, it really doesn't make the co-op experience particularly inviting. For example, I was playing the game with a friend and someone joined our party. The guy had taken some damage, but he reflected as dead on the user interface, so my teammate couldn't heal him, even though he was walking around and asking us to heal him. The animations in the game are hit and miss as well. There are certain animations that are nice and done well, such as the Tyranids themselves, but the mace and sword and whatever else animation, the melee combat, is not satisfying. It feels light, it feels floaty, it feels very much like Skyrim or Oblivion or any of the Elder Scrolls game. You don't feel like you're really connecting with the enemy and doing serious damage to them. And even though you can dismember the enemy and blow off their heads or cut off their body parts, you don't really actually get to see any of that because when you are engaged in melee, you'll just hit them and a giant pool of blood will appear in front of your screen. It's a little difficult to see things all around in this game actually, because when you're firing your gun or hitting with melee, there's a lot of Tyranids on screen. It's very noisy, very chaotic. It's very difficult to get your bearings. And the game has a limited FOV. I think it only goes up to 90, so it can be quite difficult to have a full situational view of your surroundings. Finally, let's talk about sound design. There is no music in this game whatsoever. So when you're in tense battle moments during the campaign, silent. All you're hearing is gunfire and Tyranids. Now, this works at certain points in the game when you're walking down a corridor and you hear the Tyranids running above you. It has that very sort of Alien 1 creepy vibe that you might expect, that sort of horror element. And I think that works well, but during battle moments or key moments in the story, it would have been nice to see some music. Voice acting's okay, as I said, it's a bit hit and miss depending on what you're listening to and who's acting. And the sound design itself when it comes to guns is again hit and miss. Some guns that should feel extremely powerful sound weak and muted, and other guns that you would expect to sound good like a bolter do sound semi-decent. So hit and miss there as well. Fundamentally, what you need to take away from this review is that this could have been a fantastic, if not standard, horde mode shooter in a 40k setting. Clearly, the art team cared a lot about what they were doing and they were true to the source material, and they have recreated the atmosphere, the art direction, being inside a Space Hulk, being in Terminator armor, killing Xenos with a heavy flamer, all of that stuff. They've done a great job when it comes to that. They've not done a great job when it comes to performance, when it comes to the co-op, when it comes to innovating on this type of gameplay, when it comes to the UI, the crashes, the sound design, the animations, all of that stuff. I feel like the game was made by one team and then transferred to another team to be finished, and the other team didn't have that much experience when it came to making video games. It's sadly the result of a rushed game. It's been rushed to market, it's clearly been pushed out of the door way too early, and it's not finished. And because it's not finished, it feels unfinished. So do I recommend you pick up this game? The answer is no. If you are a 40k fan, as I am, and you're, really looking into it because you want another 40k game and there aren't that many on the market that are worth your time, don't bother. You're just going to be disappointed. I was very disappointed. A lot of my friends who picked this up were disappointed. It has the potential to be a really fun game if they fix all of these issues, but I can't see them fixing them with any reasonable time frame. It's going to take them at least 3 months to just fix these performance issues, the crashes, the disconnections, and by that point, will anyone really be there playing the co-op gameplay? The answer is probably no, and so at that point, all you've got is the single-player experience, so I would give it 6 months, maybe even a year, and then pick it up on sale down the road for the single-player experience alone. If you found this review helpful or useful in some way and you want to support my channel, you can pick up this game or any other game on Green Man Gaming using my affiliate link below. You can also support me on Patreon, you'll find the link in the description alongside it. If you can't do either of those things and you want to continue supporting my channel and helping me grow, you can like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps a lot. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.